We are going to demonstrate making the connections between a 1.75 groundwater profiler and the downhole mechanical syringe pump. We will also show the parts and tools required to do this. Here we have the groundwater profiler with its 20 screen ports for injection and sampling. There are two barbed connections at the top of the probe. To one of them we will connect the downhole flow line, which is supplying water from the HPT controller. We will typically use 1/4-inch low-density polyethylene tubing and will connect that tubing onto the barb fittings. We will secure that fitting with Oetiker clamps. On the opposite barb fitting of the probe, we will connect the downhole mechanical syringe pump. We will connect the syringe pump to the probe using a 3-inch section of polyurethane tubing. Using a highly flexible tubing at this location will serve to isolate the syringe pump from the probe and reduce the possibility of damage during percussion driving. Above the mechanical syringe pump, we will connect either 1/4-inch high-density polyethylene or 1/4-inch polypropylene tubing. Over the top of the sample tubing and the top end of the syringe pump, we will add a silicone tube seal which will keep water and suspended solids from entering the top end of the syringe pump between the piston and the outer housing. These are the components we will be connecting, and we will next review them in a tool string diagram. Prior to connecting the injection and sample lines to the probe and syringe pump, you will need to thread these water lines through the 1 3/4 probe rods, drive head, and connection tube. Here are the connection tube options and drive head, and these will protect the syringe pump and all connections above the probe. You may find it easiest to first thread the stiffer high-density polyethylene tubing through the rods, followed by the more pliable low-density injection line. Once this is done, we can connect the tubing to the probe and pump, which we will now demonstrate. We will start with the connection of the low-density polyethylene tubing, which is our flow or injection line from the HPT controller. We will first place a number 7 Oetiker clamp on the tubing and then push the tubing over the barb so we get at least 2 barbs into the tubing. Once the tubing is far enough onto the barb, we can bring the Oetiker clamp down over the tubing and barb of the probe and secure it in place by pinching the clamp using either a side or end cutting pliers. Next, we will connect the 3-inch polyurethane tube to the barb on the lower end of the syringe pump. Crimping a number 7 Oetiker clamp over the tube and barb will secure it in place. Before attaching the syringe pump to the probe, make sure that the pump has been properly assembled and tested. If you have questions on this, there is a separate video that demonstrates the assembly and testing of the mechanical syringe pump. After the pump has been tested, we can then attach the opposite end of the poly tube to the remaining barb fitting on the probe and secure it in place with an Oetiker clamp. Make sure that the Oetiker clamps at the probe have been rotated so that the crimped tab will not interfere with threading on the connecting rod. We will now take a close-up look of these tubing connections onto the barb fittings of the probe. As we prepare to connect the high-density polyethylene sample line to the syringe pump, we must first install a top seal over the sample tubing. The top seal will prevent water and particulates from the rods from entering the top of the pump behind the piston, which can cause increased wear of the components and possible cross-contamination of the sample. The first step is to install a securing nut with the threads facing down toward the pump, followed by an acetyl ferrule, and then the nut which has been inserted into one of the ends of the silicone tubing. We will slide these components up the sample line, moving them out of the way of the pump so that we have room to attach the sample tubing to the barb fitting on top of the pump. The sample tubing is extremely stiff, and it is easiest to install it over the barbs of the pump if it has first been heated using a heat gun. This may take a minute or two to heat the tubing so it is pliable enough to slide over all of the barbs. When you do get to installing onto the pump, you may find it easiest to hold the barbs with the pliers so that you have some resistance to push against. There is no need to have a clamp on the tubing here, as it is very secure even with being pulled against as the pump is being actuated, and will require you to cut the tubing to remove it. After installing onto the barbs, we will wait for the tubing to cool, and then we will test it to make sure that it is secure and does not pull off the pump. We are now ready to slide the top seal assembly up to the piston pump, where we will need to work the silicone tubing over the top end of the pump body. This will take some finesse to get it over the pump, but we should try to cover the back inch or so of the pump body with the silicone tubing. We also recommend placing a clamp here over the tubing and pump body to keep the top seal secure. Just make sure it does not impede movement of the pump and there are no edges that can get caught or abrade the injection tubing. Once the silicone tubing is secure on the pump, we need to tighten the top nut and ferrule together and then test the pump once again. Next, we will slide the connection tube and drive head down over the pump and onto the probe. The groundwater profiler will now be ready to take to the field.